Okay, it's 3:45. Let's get started. Hi, Henry. So I will start sharing my screen now.
All right.
Okay, so for today's lab, we are going to finish part 2 of our lab 4. Last week, we did part 1, mapping our class survey restaurants data. So we added the web-based map using quick map service, and we created the sampling grid, and we also chose one of the 3 sampling grids provided by Dr. Shannon to count the number of class survey restaurants points within each grid cell, and then we make a map. For this week, we are going to do similar things with last week. Instead of using the survey restaurants data, we're going to download geographic features of restaurants and fast food restaurants from OpenStreetMap. So we will use a new plugin, and then we will do the similar process, count number of points, and make a final map. So let's get started. So to download, so as I said, OpenStreetMap, it's an open source platform. Instead of provide you with space map, you can also download geographic features from them. They have lots of features you can download. And to download OpenStreetMap in features in QGIS, we are going to use Quick OSM plugin. So similar to how we install and use plugin in part 1, we will install this plugin and use it. And let's just open our QGIS project first. So go to your own working folder and click the saved QGIS project. Okay, once the project is open, you should see the layers you have for part 1. So you have your survey restaurants locations, you have your styled grid cells. So for this part 2, we're going to create a new map. So the restaurant survey locations and the styled grid cells with number of counts we do not need it anymore for part 2. So you can just uncheck them, so they're not shown on the map anymore. And then we're going to install this plugin on Quick OSM. We're going to download restaurants data from this plugin. So similar to how we install plugin in previous weeks, go to plugins, manage and install plugins. You can just search Quick from all, search Quick OSM. Once you search it in the search box, you should see Quick OSM in the result window. And my plugin is already installed, but yours should have this install plugin button on the lower right. Just click the install plugin. Once the plugin is installed, you should see it under the installed tab. and then close. Once this plugin is successfully installed, you should see these two new buttons show up on your QGIS project. So those are buttons from this Quick OSM plugins. Any questions so far?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Good. Okay. So now let's go ahead and download data from Quick OSM. So we click this button, green button with this search icon. And here, this is you can query different types of geographic features and download them. So here we have key and values. So if we click the help with key and values, it will bring us to a wiki page of OpenStreetMap. So basically the keys here are you can understand it as bigger how do I say, like bigger categories. So if we go back to QGIS and click the drop down of keys, we have like big categories like city, postcode, building amenity, and all those like highway. And for this specific lab, we're going to download restaurants and fast food data, and they are under the amenity key. So here under key, we will choose amenity, and then the value is like subcategories of your key. So under amenity, we have different subcategories, like for example, ATM, bank, bars, bench, all those things like library, parking, pharmacy. And here we're going to download data for both restaurants and fast food. So let's just do restaurants first. So here, make sure your key you select amenity, and then from value, we just need to go to restaurants here. And here, this drop-down menu, like this line of parameters, you need to specify the extent, the geographic extent you want to download for those geographic features. And in this lab, we're going to use the canvas extent. So whatever we have, basically use the geographic extent we have in our QGIS project canvas. So once you selected all parameters, you should see something similar to this screenshot. And then we can run the query. So if you scroll down, you should see the run query button. Click it. Once it's done, you can see that we have two layers added to our QGIS project. One is restaurant polygons, and one is restaurant points. And then we will go ahead and download the other set of features. So similar key would be amenity, and value here would be fast food restaurant. So choose fast food, and same here, canvas extent, and then run query. So now we also have fast food, two layers of fast food added to our project. One is polygons and one is points. So you will notice that both polygons and points are downloaded for these layers. To just make them consistent, we could just convert the polygons to centroids to make them uniform. But for this specific lab, we will just ignore the polygons features, the polygons layer. So we will only use the point layer of the OSM restaurants and OSM fast food. So also, we will need to combine these two point layers together into one layer. And to do so, we will use the union tool in the toolbox. So before I go to the union tool, any questions so far?
No, all good.
Okay. So let's just go ahead. And so to use the union tool, there's two ways you can do it. One is through the processing toolbox, and another way is go to vector, go to geoprocessing tools. So go to vector, go to geoprocessing tools, and there is a union tool. Here, once you click the union tool, you should have this window popped up. So input layer and overlay layer would be our two point layers that we downloaded from OpenStreetMap. It doesn't matter the order, so it doesn't matter which one is the input layer and which one is overlay layer. So let's just go ahead and choose first. You can do, yeah, amenity fast food. And then the overlay layer would be the amenity restaurant. So we will merge or union these 2 point layers into one layer. And then here under this parameter union, by default, they will create temporary layer, but we want to save it to our own file. So click the 3 dots, click save to file. Oops, sorry. This one is wrong. So make sure you both are point layers. So make sure you don't choose the polygon layers. So fast food point layer, restaurant point layer, and then we save to our own file. So go to your lab folder and just save it. So give it a name. So you can call it OSM restaurant, for example. And then I will save it as geo package and click save. So once all the parameters are settled, we can run the tool. Okay, when the tool is finished, you will see algorithm union finish, and then you can close the window. And now we have our new OSM restaurants layer. This is the union layer added to our QGIS project. And now we will just uncheck other layers that's not useful. So this is how we union this the 2 restaurants layer and fast food layer together. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. And then next step is similar to part 1. We will count and map in points for the OSM data. So this is the same procedure as we did for our restaurant survey reviews data. And here, one thing we need to make sure is that in our part 1, you choose one size, you choose one grid size among those 3 different sides. And because finally we were going to compare the map we made in part 1 and the map we made in part 2. So here you need to be consistent with the grid size you did for part 1. So for example, for part 1 demonstration, I choose the 0.01 degrees grid cells. So in this part 2, I will use the same grid cells layer. So we can go ahead and do that. So as I said, I need to use the same grid cells. So I use this grid 01 layer. And then I have my OSM restaurants points here. Now I'm going to count the number of OSM restaurant points in each grid cells. So to do that, go to Vector Analysis Tools, count points in polygons. In this case, the polygon would be grid 01 layer. And the points would be our newly created OSM restaurants layer, the union layer. And then for this count or output file, I will save it to another file. Probably call it grid 01 OSM restaurants. And the type would be GeoPackage files. So I click save. Once I input all the parameters, I will run this tool. Okay. Once the algorithm finished, you can close the window and you can see we have this new grid layer with OSM restaurant counts added to our QGIS project. Now we can uncheck the grid 01, the original layer. And from there, we can go ahead and, before we also want to move this layer below our OSM restaurants point layer. So you can see the points on top of the grid. So start from there, we can then do the style and do the final map thing. Any question?
No.
Okay, good. Now let's do, let's style this grid layer. So right click this grid layer, go to properties. From symbology, choose graduated, and the value would be num points. And here for the color ramp, just choose whatever color ramp using is suitable for this data. And for demonstration purpose, I will choose green. And then for the classification scheme for demonstration purpose, I choose natural breaks. Here you need to be careful about your classification scheme and color scheme. Mine is just for demonstration purpose. And then we also want to make sure our polygon field is transparent. So we click the drop-down menu of the symbol and just move the transparency bar to the middle. And then click apply, and then OK. Now you can see our grid layer is styled based on the number of counts of OSM restaurants. And then we also want to uncheck our empty grid cells. So you will just in the table of contents of this grid layer, just from the legend items, just uncheck the first one, 0 to 0. Now you can, you only see those grid with points inside. So next part would be making the final map in the print composer. But any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay, so next part is you guys should be really familiar with that. Just go to project, go to new print layout and do the final map. Similar to how you did everything in part 1 or in previous labs. But here, I want to show you guys a trick how to do it quicker. So because in the lab deliverables, one of the question would ask you to compare these two labs. So when we compare these two labs, it would be easier, or it would be great that these two maps has the same layout, like the same layout, even though they have different map content. So there's one way that we can do to create two maps with the same layout. That would be using the layout template. So what we need to do is go to project, go to layouts. Here you should see the layout you saved from part 1, right? In part 1, we created a layout of the restaurant survey data. So you click that. Then it brings up the layout of your part 1 map. And we want to click layout, save as template. So we want to save the layout of this map, of your part 1 map as a template. And then just go to your working folder, give it a name. Just for example, layout. And then click save. And then you can close this layout, close it. And then go to project, go to new print layout. Here we will create a new print layout for our second map. You can call it, OSM restaurants, for example. And then click OK. And then here we want to import the layout from the template we just saved from part 1. So go to layout. And then click add items from template. And then go browse into your folder and click the template file you just saved. Click open. And then once we import that layout, you should see we have all the map elements in the same position from the map we did in part 1. But here you still need to make modifications. So for example, title would be different. So if you click the title, you need to change it to title for part 2. So you need to change the title. And then also for the legend, it should be different. So now the legend is fixed from what we have for part 1. Here you need to check the auto updates. So it shows all the layers we have for the QGIS project. And then you uncheck again and then delete the layers you don't want. So here we don't want this polygon layer from OSM. We delete them. We do need the OSM restaurants point layer. And then we need this grid layer with OSM restaurants count. And then we do not need the original OSM fast food point layer. We do not need the original OSM restaurant layer. And also we don't need any layer from part 1. So just delete those. And once you delete the layers you don't want, you also want to change the legend item names. For example, OSM restaurant. You can change point name to OSM restaurants, and then the grid layer name you can change it to control. Okay, so now we've styled the legend, and that would be the map. So the map scale is the same. If you write down, if you did record or write down the scale from your part 1, you should find that they have the same scale. So we don't need to change the scale bar and anything. And then just make sure your map has the correct content. And then once you have everything modified for your part 2 map, just go to layout and export as image. So make sure you export as image format. Click close. And then browse into your working folder. So just give it the name and save it as JPEG and click save. Once the export is finished, you should see it in your working folder. And then, yeah. Then you should have another map for your part 2 using the OSM restaurants data, and also you would have the so if you click the map from your part 1, you should have a similar map. So this is the one you created from part 1, and this is the map you created from part 2. Now, don't forget to save your layout. Click save. Any questions so far?
Nope. All good.
Okay. So what I just demonstrate is like a trick to a quicker way to do the map in the map composer for part 2, but you can also choose not to do the template and just create a new print layout and add everything one by one, similar to how you did it in part 1. Okay, so now let's close this print layout and make sure you save your QGIS project. And basically that's all we have for today's lab. So if we go to the assignment, so you should finish with 2 maps. Both include the following in the final map requirements: the relevant points, restaurant reviews or OSM points. Our restaurant review points should be sized by the number of reviews. The point count variable, we've already did that in part 1. And second, a heat map showing the count of relevant points by grid cell. You should use the same grid size for both maps. We also did that. Sorry, my laptop is running low of battery. Just give me 1 second.
All good.
Okay. I got the battery charged. And the third, the grid layer should be semi-transparent, and the OSM-based map should be visible underneath, and we did that for both maps. And last, both maps should include informative titles, scale bars, and legends. And for both map in part 2 and part 1, we have titles, scale bars, and legend. And now let's talk about the lab deliverables. So first, make sure you include your maps as separate files with your submission, or add them to your question response Word document. Each of these maps will be worth 12 points. So 12 points per map based on accuracy, the inclusion of elements shown above, and overall map design. So the overall map design, we would evaluate that based on good balance of visual elements, suitable classification, and color scheme. And we also have 5 questions for lab deliverables. First, compare the 2 maps you made. Point out 2 specific places where they differ from one another and 1 place where they overlap. So basically just compare these 2 maps you made and evaluate the pattern and point out 2 specific places where they have similar pattern and places where they have different patterns. And second question, make one suggestion for how we could have improved our data creation process for restaurant reviews in ways that would have made our data more representative of all restaurants in the city. So make suggestion for our restaurant survey. Or the data creation process. And third, which grid scale did you use for this analysis? Give at least one reason why you felt it was better than the other two options. So in this analysis, we chose one grid scale among the three scales provided. So please just explain and give at least one reason why you chose it, why it's better than the other two. Fourth, search for information on the MMQGIS plugin online. Who created it? What's one other tool it provides? And what would that be used for? Write a short paragraph summarizing what you learned and provide links to the source you use. So basically, do some online Googling about this MMQGIS tool. So we use MMQGIS plugin to create the grid cells. Just search what's the author of that tool, what's the other tool, what's one other tool MMQGIS provides, and how can we use that tool. So write one paragraph summary of that, and also make sure you provide the links, the reference. And last question, you were both a participant and an analyst in this experiment, which used volunteer geographic information VGI to better understand how individuals navigate the campus environment. In class, we've talked about the strengths and problems of using VGI. Use one idea we've talked or read about on this topic and explain how you think it applies to the data we created for this project. Be specific in your reference to class materials for full credit. So basically for this analysis, you're a participant of this VGI. So you finished the class restaurant survey. So you're a participant of this VGI data. Also, we use the data that we use the VGI data gathered from the survey and did some analysis. So you're also an analyst in this experiment. So connect to any other class material related to VGI you read in this class, and just consider about the strengths and problems. So basically the pros and cons of using VGI. So briefly talk about how you think that applies to the data we created and we analyze in this project, and make sure you make the reference to the class material for full credit. So that's the last question. And that's all we have for lab deliverables. So any question for lab deliverables?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, so then if you don't have any questions, you're free to go.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.